We okay? We're in the Torah, so take the Chumash. We're on page 198. This is the third in a trilogy. You don't have a Chumash? There are some more. Neil, do me a favor. The maintenance people had a cart of them just on the other side of that door. You should share, but we're going to get a few more. I'm sorry. I keep asking for them, and they keep forgetting to bring them. Shortage of Bibles in the world. It's a terrible problem. It's the American war on the Bible. Sorry, what? Yeah, it's been sold out. That's the problem, yeah. Well, so one more announcement. We're going to do I put out a new book, and the book has come out. It's a wonderful book. Makes a great Christmas present. It's called Chutzpah. And we're going to do a book signing in January, but I'm going to bring some on Wednesday night. So if you want to buy a copy cheap, I'll sign it for you. I'll sign it to anyone you want. All right. The story of Jacob is a trilogy. It's three parts: his childhood, his adulthood, and today we get the third part. So this is like stepping into the third part of a trilogy, which is hard to do because this is the denouement of all of the climax of all of the plot themes that have been developed over the first two. And it's a little bit hard to understand where we've come unless you get a sense of the development of the character. Jacob is the most developed character among the patriarchs, probably in all of the book of Genesis. The only character who gets, come on, gazettes, come on, get out of play. We got some spots. Come on. The only character that gets more attention in terms of his development of character is God. God really develops in the Bible. But Jacob, you get to see how this man begins small and ends up large. He begins as a person who is grasping, who is manipulative, who is ruthless, selfish, self-absorbed, self-centered, and you begin to see how that cracks open. Part of it is, and that's where you get to the second part. So that's the beginning. So we see him bargaining for his brother's birthright and then stealing his brother's blessing. And then in the second part, what happens is that sort of behavior comes back to him. And in the second part, several things happen. He falls in love. And suddenly this self-possessed young man falls in love. And he discovers what it's like to need another. What it's like to be attached to another. What it's like to have your soul attached to somebody else. He is himself the victim of manipulation and cheating. He goes to bed with Rachel and he wakes up with Leah. And that process of, Jay, leave it open. We need the air. That process of getting to experience being on the other end of the manipulation and the ruthlessness, and he begins to open up as a character, and that's the second part. Today is the denouement, the climax of it, the resolution. God says to him at the end of last week's Torah portion, time to go home. 20 years in Haran, you've been here long enough, time to go home. But time to go home means time to go back and face all the mess that you left back at home. Time to go back and face your brother. Face the destruction that you left behind, and face the part of you which you don't want to know. Face the part of you which you don't want to acknowledge as part of you. Face your shadow. And he's coming back. And so the story begins at the end of last week's Torah portion, where Jacob begins the journey home. And as he crosses the desert and approaches, As he crosses the desert and approaches Canaan, he's crossing the wilderness and coming back to himself. Coming back to the parts of himself he left behind, coming back to the person he was, and coming back to the mess that he left behind. And the story here is what happens when you have to come back and confront the mess that you left behind. And what happens to you when you have to come back and confront the person the person you were and are now ashamed of. What happened when you have to come back? And that's where we begin today's story. Now, I'm going to suggest a rubric for understanding this. The rubric for understanding this is follow the power. This concept of power, the ability to accomplish things in the world, the ability to change the universe. Who has all the power in the story? Well, there's different kinds of power in this story, right? Jacob has had power till now, and what's been Jacob's power? How does Jacob accomplish stuff? Through what? Through canniness, trickery, misdirection, manipulation. It's a certain kind of power, right? It's a subversive kind of power. And subversive is what he's all about. He's the younger one and he overtakes his brother. He wants the younger daughter before the older daughter. It's the subversive power. It's the power of people who don't have ordinary power, right? I don't want to justify this, but people become terrorists when they don't have armies. When they don't have ordinary forces of power, they use alternative methods of power, okay? What's Esau's power? Right, he has what we call ordinary power. He has violence. He's had the threat of violence. He kills animals for fun, right? He's a big, strong, powerful, overt power. His is overt power. Jacob's is covert power. His is ordinary power. Jacob's is subversive power. Okay? Now, what's God's power? Well, yes and no. See, that's what you'd think, you know. We think of God, we think of Almighty, but you got to remember that the God of the Bible is not the God that you know from later tradition. The God of the Bible is not all-knowing. Yes, the God of the Bible is watching like you and I are going, oh my God, you know, or oh my, oh my me, you know. Like, could you imagine? God might be able to predict natural phenomenon, you know, it's going to rain Tuesday. But God cannot predict what people are doing. God, in the Bible, at least in the book of Genesis, is constantly surprised by people. Right? Over and over again, he's constantly surprised by people. And what's the thing that surprises God most? The way brothers treat each other. He puts Cain and Abel in the world, right? And right away, Cain is going to kill his brother. And God comes to him and says, what are you doing? Be careful. And then he kills Abel, and God says, what'd you do that for? Well, it's more literary than that, but there's this surprise. Like, how could you have done this? Right? He's surprised at what the generation of Noah does. He's surprised over and over again at how people respond to the world. God is not all-knowing. And in terms of being all-powerful, maybe galaxies, but not people. God cannot manipulate what people are going to do. There's only one thing God can do here, which is try to get people to be the people they are meant to be. God has a faith in this man Jacob that Jacob doesn't have. God knows about the inner life of Jacob that Jacob doesn't know. He knows things that Jacob is capable of that Jacob doesn't know, and that's the beginning of the story. Right? And I'll compare this in a very crude way to Hamlet. Remember the Shakespearean play Hamlet, right? At the beginning of Hamlet, remember his uncle kills his dad. It's the Lion King, if you don't know. I mean, it's maybe Shakespeare stole it from Disney, right? The uncle kills the dad and moves in with mom, and Hamlet's put in the uncomfortable position of trying to figure out where his loyalties are, and he knows that he has to go and avenge his father, but he just has other things to do. Hamlet is all about hesitation, and Jacob is all about hesitation. And that's going to be part of Jacob has the wily, canny trickster who now gains power, doesn't know how to use it. And God's function is to get Jacob to be the man that he's meant to be. So take a look with me now. We're approaching Canaan, and Jacob gets message that his brother is coming to greet him with 400 men. Now, 400 men, that's not the UCLA cheer squad. 400 men is an army. So an army is coming to greet you. And so what is Jacob's conclusion in his own mind? The last time we saw each other, Esau promised to kill me. He's coming to kill me. This is what he's coming to do. Jacob sent messengers, we're on page 198. Everybody good? Jacob sent messengers to his brother Esau, land of Seir, the country of Edom, saying, thus shall you say to my lord Esau. Fancy language, right? My lord Esau, thus says your servant Jacob. That you get the point? Now, that's you could read that, you could read that either way. He's hoping that Esau's going to take that literally. We know that this is part of his canniness. This is his manipulation. I have stayed with Laban and remained till now. I have acquired cattle as sheep, male and female slaves. I send this message in the hope of gaining your favor. The messenger's return. This is like what you don't want to hear, right? It's like when the email comes back, right? We came to your brother. He himself is coming to meet you. He's not sending a guy. He's not sending a group. He's not sending a basket, muffins. You're not going to get muffins. We got the thing from Harry and David. Fruit of the Month Club. Anyone get this in the mail? Yeah. If you've never gotten this, first of all, it's a great gift, but the catalog is worth getting. It's the Victoria's Secrets of fruit. The same guy must photograph them because the fruit in that catalog is so sexy. I'm telling you, I had to wipe my brow. I mean, my God, I have never seen fruit look that good. I'm going to push this down. It was right before. Well, no, that's too far. You have never seen pears, apples, and peaches without their clothes on. Look so good. Holy cow. Yeah, so that's not what's coming. What's coming? Your brother Esau, he himself is coming to meet you, and there are 400 men with him. The answer that you notice that Jacob, his words are not recorded here. Like, oh, wonderful. Jacob was greatly frightened in his anxiety. Now, what is Jacob? The whole story of Jacob is about dividing, right? It's Jacob against Esau, Isaac against Rebekah, Rachel against Leah, Jacob against Laban, and now Jacob against Esau. So what does he do? He goes to his canniness. He divides. He divides the people, the flocks and the herds, camels into two camps, thinking if Esau comes to one camp and attacks it, the other camp may yet escape. Now, wait a minute. That's a strange strategy, isn't it? If you're a caravan, you want to stay together. You want to protect everyone. Dividing them makes them both more vulnerable. It's a strange strategy. It's a manipulative strategy. It's always about dividing with him. Right? Then Jacob says, O God of my father, Abraham, Isaac, and the Lord has said to me, return to your native land. I will deal bountifully with you. I am unworthy of all the kindness you've steadfastly shown your servant. My staff, I crossed alone. Now I have become two camps. Deliver me, I pray, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau. Else I fear he may come and strike me down, mother and children alike. You have said, I will deal bountifully with you and make your offspring as the sands of the sea, which are too numerous to count. Don't turn the page. So strategy number one, divide the camps. Strategy number two, pray to God. Does he believe that prayer? No. Why? How do you know? He didn't say my God. Because, well, not even, you don't have to be so careful. You're right. But it's not even that. If he believed in the prayer, why does he have to do all this other stuff? And God said, I'm going to take care of you. He said, I'm going to take care of you twice. Twice God said, I'm going to take care of you. But Jacob, if he believed in it, he'd say, whatever's going to happen, God will protect me. The Lord will protect me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Well, hang on, we'll get there in a minute. Wait. Almost. We'll get in a minute. We got to get one more verse, right? He doesn't believe his own prayer because he's back to being the canny manipulator. First you divide, then you pray, see what you can get out of God. Turn the page, right? Here's the third strategy to protect yourself. After spending the night, he selected from what was at hand presents for his brother. So, dividing, praying, bribing. Let's see what kind of bribe we're going to send him, right? What are we going to send him? 200 she-goats, 20 he-goats, 20 ewes, 20 rams, 30 milch, 40 cows, partridge in a pear tree. Right? You get the numbers here. A lot of animals. How many animals is that? Count them quick. Come on, who's an accountant here? 220, 420, 460, 490. How many? Come on, I need an accountant here. A whole bunch of animals. 530. Right. 530 animals. How many men is Esau bringing? If each guy has to take one animal with him, what's that going to do to Esau's army? Try attacking somebody holding a goat. I can't get to the refrigerator holding my dog. Imagine holding. I mean, this is you get to see the strategy. If every man in Esau's army takes one animal, you see, it's not bad. He put in charge of his servant drove by drove. Go ahead, keep a distance between the droves. Put them in waves. They come in waves, right? He instructs him, when my brother Esau meets you and he says, whose man are you, where are you going, and whose animals are these? You say it's your servant Jacob there, gift to you, my lord Esau. And all the language, right? And he gave similar instructions to the second and the third. And he said, you will add your servant Jacob is right behind us. He reasoned. It's interesting that it gives you his reasoning. If I propitiate him, that's a fancy word. What does propitiate mean? It's that Rabbi Schulweis word. What does propitiate mean? It means to calm somebody down. To buy him off is what it means, right? With presents in advance, and then face him, perhaps he'll show me favor. So the gift went on ahead. That same night, so he's divided the camps, he's prayed to God, he's sent the bribe. That night he arose and taking his 2 wives, his 2 maids, his 11 children, he crossed the ford of the Yavok. He's entered Canaan now. That's the ford of the Jordan River. And after taking them across the stream, he sent across all of his possessions. Okay? So tell me what he did. After sending that stuff, what does he do next? He takes the whole family, and he's moving in which direction? From east to west, right? He's moving from east to west. And he moves across the river, right? Who's he with? The whole family. Look at the next verse. And Jacob was left alone. What do you mean he's left alone? I thought he just crossed everybody over. He what? He crossed them over. And then what was he supposed to do? Sleep there that night. And then in the morning he would arise and meet his brother. But he didn't. He crossed them all over. And then he went back. No, he didn't just stay behind. He went back. He was intending to stay with the family and in the morning go see his brother. But what happened? He what? Chickened out. That's an interesting phrase. All right? There's goats and cows. No chickens in this story. What happened? It's Hamlet again, right? He hesitated. Either he didn't go across. He sent everybody across, didn't go himself, or he went across and he came back. He doesn't want to do it. He can't do it. There's something holding him back. Is it fear of Esau? Now, before it's fear of Esau, this is a very rich and powerful man, Jacob. Is it fear of facing what he had done to his brother? Is it fear of facing what he did to his parents, to his father? Is it guilt over who he had been? Is it facing the part of myself I have tried my whole life to stop being? He doesn't want, so he goes back and something weird happens. And the Torah now goes from look how detailed this story is, down to the number of goats, and suddenly we have this dream sequence. It just drops into the text, right? Jacob was left alone. And a man wrestled with him until the break of dawn. What a weird phrase that is. A man? What? A man? A guy shows up out of nowhere and wrestles with him. It's a dream you see how strange that is compared to the specificity of the text before? And when he saw that he had not prevailed against him, right? V'avek ishimo ad alot hashachar, vayar ki lo yachol. The Hebrew in verse 26 is ki lo yachol, lo yachol lo. Either he couldn't prevail against him. I got a better thing. I think Jacob was trying to escape again. Trying to run away. And it doesn't say exactly who prevails against who, right? It's he and him. It's a very ambiguous text on purpose, right? He wrenched Jacob's hip out of its socket. so that the socket of his hip was strained as he wrestled with him. Now, if you wrench somebody's hip out of the socket, it's more than a strain. But what else happens? What are you left with? Which means you can't run away. You keep the adversary here. So this is all about keeping him in the play. And think of the image of wrestling for a minute. Jacob's MO is every time faced with adversity, he runs away. Faced with adversity, he escapes. It's all about misdirection and, right? Boxing is about misdirection, right? I mean, anyone take boxing lessons ever, right? It's jab, 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 wham, right? Right? It's about misdirection. Boxing is about misdirection. Wrestling's not about misdirection. You don't fake in wrestling. You can't, because the other person has their arms around you. Okay? There's a different kind of power involved in wrestling. And wrestling is an image. It's a funny image, right? It's an image of grappling, of holding and of straining. It's also in some, it's on one way related to lovemaking, and on the other way it's related to killing. It's a strange image, right? It's a strange image. As an image, it's a struggle. It's a wrestling match. And then what? I'll be right with you, Paul. Then he says, "Let me go. Dawn is breaking." But he said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." And he says, "What is your name?" And he says, "Jacob." And he said, "Your name is no longer Jacob, but Israel. Ki sarita im Elohim ve'im anashim ve'tuchal." For you have striven. Sarita means you struggled with. You've struggled with. You have wrestled with. You have fought with men and God. Elohim ve'adam. Men and God. Anashim ve'Elohim. You have struggled with God and you've struggled with men and you have prevailed. Vatuchal. Vatuchal can either mean you have prevailed, or if you read it vituchal, it means you will prevail. I mean, this could be, the tenses in the Bible are very wiggly. This could mean past tense, or this can be a prophecy. You will struggle with God and you will struggle with men and you will prevail. Jacob says, "Tell me your name." He said, "Don't ask my name." But he took leave of him there, and Jacob named the place Peniel, because I have seen God face to face, and my life has been preserved. What is this about? This is the hesitation, and this is God's way of keeping him in the fight, keeping him there. All right, Paul.
He's been running away from his brother
Yeah.
for 20 years.
Yeah.
Now, with his hip out of joint, he cannot run away from his brother anymore, and I think he's wrestling with his brother. And the blessing he receives means you're going to prevail this time. At least you're not going to be hurt.
Right. Now, let's juxtapose this to the other dream. Remember, there was a dream when he left Canaan, which is the dream of the ladder. Remember the ladder? And this is the dream of the wrestler. First of all, you know that this is a family with a lot of dreams. And that foreshadows the next set of stories, which is about his son, the dreamer. Right? The dream of the ladder is what he has when he's leaving Canaan. And the dream of if this is a dream, or this vision, this experience of the wrestling is what he has when he returns. Right? It's a very interesting set of dreams. Jay, you want to say something?
Yes, I think it's a continuum, because this goes along the struggle between man with himself and women enjoying this. Rachel comes in, Rebecca comes in, it's another side of a big story. Now she united in this whole thing. And this continuum goes along. I must not break it down. God is struggling, man is struggling, and women, and they have to struggle to be able to deal with this in positive ways. But it repeats itself over and over again in new ways. Wickedness, each time it comes up, and each time it's another struggle. At different times,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a continuum until Sinai.
Okay. So I want to suggest that this is the power of God in the story is not overpowering power in history. It's the power to get people to see who they really are and to be who they really are. Jerry, you want to add something?
Just the coincidence that Rabbi Zoe Klein, Wednesday night,
Yeah.
last Wednesday night, gave an interesting, not intentionally on this, but
Yes.
an interesting answer.
Right.
She said, well, we all know how to interpret dreams.
Right.
Personal experience from modern psychology.
Yeah.
And that is, it's all us.
Uh-huh.
Every character is us.
Right.
So when Jacob is wrestling with this man,
Right.
and when he has life problems with this twin, those are all kind of in quotes. And maybe it's like all a dream, and it's Jacob says to God, very analytically, now I am divided.
Right.
And that's the story of his life. It's an internal conflict,
Right.
which the narrative, because it's not a modern exposition, deals with in individual characters.
Right.
But they're all Jacob
So
at some level.
Wednesday night, in the rain and the snow and the thunder and the lightning and the earthquake and the hail, there were a handful of us here to hear Rabbi Zoe Klein give the lecture for the College of Jewish Studies. She taught the book of Jonah. And she has a method of learning Bible, as Jerry pointed out, which is different than you've heard here. Because my method comes from Rabbi Schulweis, her method comes from her world. And what she does is she reads everything in the Bible as if it were a dream. And so in a dream, in a dream, every character in the dream is a part of you. She calls it sacred psychology. So if this were a dream, okay, Jacob is Jacob. Who's the angel? It's also Jacob. It's the part of Jacob that hasn't yet been internalized into Jacob. Who's the angel? It's his conscience. It's the part of him that acts in the world, that is unafraid, that confronts problems. It's the part of him that he left behind when he ran away from home. He's coming home. This is the part you left behind. This is the part of you've never integrated into yourself. And what happens is he wrestles with that part of himself and wrestles a blessing out of that part of himself. Right? That's why that part of himself can give him a new name. And he remains a divided character in some ways. But on the other hand, he begins to internalize that part of himself. It's a wonderful, it's sort of psychological, psychoanalytic interpretation of what this is. Yeah, Bob.
Just to go back to the comment about him being manipulative, when you listed what he decided to do,
Yeah.
he's really a part of his culture at the time, and perhaps even to today.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that what he chose to do, with the gifts and the whole thing is really manipulative. I think it's smart. I mean, that's part of the culture I would think of a desert people and.
Yeah, part of it rings true as part of a desert people culture. Part of it is a reference back to the story we left where he left behind, right? What was the story he left behind? There were two blessings. The blessing that Jacob got, the blessing that Esau got, right? The blessing that Jacob got was riches and power. The blessings that Esau got was the land. And there was part of it where the blessing that Jacob got was that he would be over his brother. He would be superior to his brother. So when he comes back to meet his brother, all of this subservient language is if to say, I'm giving you back what I took. I'm giving you back the superiority. You are the Lord and I am the servant. This is your land and I am returning to it. And this is your wealth. I'm giving you back what I took. He's trying to undo the damage, and he's asking for forgiveness. He's asking for forgiveness from his brother. Sorry? Well, I don't know. Do you soften a guy up? I mean, do you soften a guy like Ace? Can you? 20 years of rage? You know how it is with people? I don't know how so an insult is delivered, and for the next 40 years, it's repeated over and over again, and each time it's repeated, it gets worse and worse, right? I like to tell you the story about my aunts who sat at the end of my Seder table, It was Aunt Sarah and my bubby, Aunt Sonia, right? And Aunt Rosie, and the four of them hated each other, right? They hated each other. And I used to say to them, and then my mother, who was the other side of the family, was my dad's family. By the way, they're still screaming at each other. You go to Mount Sinai Memorial Park, you put your ear to, you can hear them screaming. I hear them screaming at each other. It's amazing. So I once asked, my mother, who was perverse, would seat them all together, So once, I wandered as a little boy. I wandered down, and I said to Bubby, I said, Bubby, what are you so angry at Aunt Rosie for? And why is Aunt Rosie so angry at Aunt Sonia? You know, she was the sister-in-law. And why is everybody angry? You know, and Bubby looked at me. She said, "Don't ever ask me that question," which means I forgot. You know, like 40 years ago, some insult, something was borrowed and not returned. Money was borrowed. It was. Yeah, all right. It was like Avalon, right?
Bessie bought a turkey and put it in Mom's freezer.
Yeah.
And when Thanksgiving came, and Bessie made a Thanksgiving dinner, but didn't invite Mom. Sinai Cemetery, you gotta go to the left first and then to the right.
Otherwise, they'll curse you. Yeah.
You'll have an earthquake.
That's right. You can stand on Aunt Rosie's grave. It still smells like cigarettes. It's amazing. You know, I mean, she may be 12 feet down, but it comes up. So this is what happened. You know, so the question, you have a man who has spent 21 years rehearsing in his mind the fantasy of what he's going to do when he gets his hands around the throat of his son of a bitch little brother, right? You know, right? So let's see you want to see what happens? Yeah, of course you do. Chapter 33, looking up. Jacob looking up. So it's morning, and Jacob is back across the river with the family now. He returned, right? Looking up, Jacob saw Esau coming, accompanied by 400 men. He divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and the two maids, putting the maids and their children first, Leah and her children next, and Jacob and Rachel and Joseph last. So this guy just doesn't get it, right? Here we go again. He himself, now where would you think he would be? No. In the back. You put everybody else in front, you're in the back, right? Because this is an escape strategy, not a battle strategy, right?
But does he go in
Look at verse 3. He himself went on ahead. So that lets you know that what? Something's changed in him. If he's going ahead and not behind, this is no longer an escape strategy. This is a confrontation strategy. He bowed low to the ground 7 times. That's a hell of a gesture. That's your culturally determined gesture, right? Esau ran to greet him. This is like if you're playing this cinematically. This is I need the music from Jaws, you know, da dum da, you know, or the music from Darth Vader, right? Dum 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 da dum dum da dum. You know, what do you mean Esau ran to greet him? Is he going to kill him?
We don't know.
He embraced him. What is embracing? Is that falling on his neck? Oy vey. And he kissed him and they wept. Now, what are Esau and Jacob? They're twins. They look alike? Where? They didn't before. But 20, 40 years, you're 60 years old now. Do you start to look alike? They look alike. Now, so here's the question. Before you turn the page, so tell me, Esau, tell me we know we have an exquisite portrait of Jacob's struggles. What's in Esau's head? The Torah is not interested in Esau because he's not the patriarch. But tell me what's in Esau's head. He's the much more interesting character. He's coming with an army. He's coming to kill his brother. That's determined. He spent 20 years fantasizing about choking this little guy to death. He shows up. He looks in Jacob's face. What does he see, and what does he think, and what does he do? He sees himself. He sees the father. He sees the grandfather. He sees the brother that he's lost all these years.
One other thing.
What else?
He sees someone who is terrified, and he realizes all of his own rage doesn't mean anything because his brother has been living with this fear all his life. Esau himself is the one who grows,
Yeah.
not Jacob.
I think it's peace.
Well, think just the physical positions, right? All of these years with the fantasy, what happened to Jacob in Esau's fantasies? He kept getting bigger and bigger.
Now he's prostrate.
And now he's lying on the ground. Prostrating means you put your, and Esau looks down at his brother and sees him in his powerlessness. And something changes. And now you're going to have the same story, right? So Genesis is 6 brother stories. And then the 7th is Moses and Aaron, right? It's Cain and Abel. It's Noah's sons. It's Isaac. It's Abraham. His brother's dead. It's Abraham and Lot. It's Isaac and Ishmael. Jacob and Esau. Joseph and the brothers. Moses and Aaron. 7 brother stories. Sigmund Freud said that the determinate relationship in shaping human personality is the Oedipal complex, the way you get along with the other gender parent. Boys fall in love with their mothers, wish to have them, can't conquer the father because he's too big and strong, so they become the father, and that's how boys are born into men. Girls fall in love with their father, right? Can't overcome the mother, identify with the mother. That's how girls become women. The Bible says, no, it's not the parental relationship, it's your sibling relationship. Can you figure out the parts of yourself that your siblings own that you don't? And can you make peace with that? And can you make peace with their flaws? Can you make peace with all that's broken in them and still love them anyway? So over and over again, this drama repeats. And the Bible's question is over and over again, will you ever figure out how to get along with your brother? Now, where did that come from? First of all, that's an elemental human experience. But within the Jewish people, that's our national experience. You ever figure out how to get along, Jews? Because everything that was precious to the Jewish people was lost because we couldn't get along with each other. We lost the first temple, we lost the second temple, we're going to lose this one in a minute. They're just about to dissolve the government. I mean, this is the Bible's plea to the Jewish people to get their act together. You know, and then in the world, it's the same thing. If you can't see the other as your brother, then this world is not going to work. So here's the denouement of the whole Bible. Hang on a second. Let's get to this. Esau looks at him, and instead of killing him, Joseph is going to do the same thing in about 4 weeks. He looks at his brother. He sees himself in them. He sees what he needs in them. He sees the companionship, the oneness he's never had, and he embraces him. And look at the next line. Remember the blessing? His name is changed from Jacob to Esau. From Jacob to Israel. And he says, this is Peniel. I have seen the face of God, and I have lived to tell about it. Now he says, looking about, he saw the women and children. He said, who are these? And he says, the children with whom God has favored your servant. And the maids, the children came forward about Lo with Leah and her children forward, Joseph and Rachel next. And he asked, what do you mean by all these, what is all this junk you've been sending me? Like, what? I didn't need a television set. And he said, to gain my Lord's favor. He said, I have enough, my brother. There's a clue. In order to forgive, you have to be able to say, Daili, I have enough. I have enough. I have enough, right? Right? Esav, Yeshli Rav. I have enough. Achi. I mean, the phrase, it's a beautiful phrase. Yeshli Rav Achi. Which can also be translated as what? I have a great brother. Right? In having you, I have enough. Yeshli Rav Achi. It's another way to read the sentence. Right? Let what you have remain yours. But Jacob said, no, take it. No, I sent it already, take it. I took the tax deduction. Accept my present has been brought for you, for God has favored me. And he urged him, he accepted. Right? The Bible has this kind of stuff all the time. And Esau says, let's start at our own. Right? And he says, no. My Lord knows that the children are slow. You go ahead. You go ahead. So it's still not exactly right. He says, we'll go with you. No, you go. We'll be fine. He says, I'll send you some men. He said, no, we'll be okay. Just go, right? And he left. And Jacob arrived, right, at the city. Where's the face of God part? Did I lose that? Right? 204. Did I lose the face of God? Verse, Jacob said, no, if you would do this favor, accept from me this gift and see, for your face is like seeing the face of God. Last night it was Peniel when he wrestled. Today it's like seeing the face of God. What does he mean it's like seeing the face of God? That's a beautiful idea. What does it mean to see your twin brother is the face of God? What is a revelation? To see God is to see the part of yourself that you left behind. It's to see your true self. This is not just a moment where he sees his brother. Jacob finally sees himself reflected in somebody else. He sees the man that he's become, right? And it's plus there's the relief of getting out of mortal danger, but it's a deeper experience. All right, someone had a question. Yes, Rob.
Quickie,
Please, no, take it.
here you see the face of God and you live. Moses,
Yeah.
God says, if you see my face, you die.
Right. Yeah.
And we got a conflict here.
But
I tend to believe the one with Moses more than
But here too, let's take that just as a moment. So what happens to Moses when he sees God? It's the same experience. God cannot manipulate, God cannot change the responses of the Israelite people. But God can get Moses to be the man he's meant to be. And what is Moses' problem? Moses is Jacob's great-great-great-great-grandson, right? The son of Levi, the son of Yitzhak, right? And what is Moses' problem? God says, go back to Pharaoh, tell him, let my people go. And Moses says, I'm not going. Who am I? He's also reticent. He's also hesitant. He's also not willing to confront. And it's, what does God do? Now there, God, you get plagues. There's a new movie, by the way, it's coming out. Christian Bale plays Moses. They couldn't get Mandy Patinkin. I mean, you know, Batman, right. Thanks so much, right. A man named Christian Bale, Gesundheit, you know. Very nice. What?
Can't look like a Jew.
Does he really? Yeah. Yeah, does he look that way? But you see, but there too, it's a question of, can we get Moses to be who Moses is meant to be? Can Moses find the parts of himself that he left out? I mean, that's an interest. And then Ramses is his brother in some way. Aaron becomes the brother that he goes with, but Ramses is his brother. And what? Well, you're Brenner. Yeah. You know, let it be written. You know, I never wear a shirt. You know. I said it's a question of can he integrate the parts of himself which are gone. All right, we got one more thing we got to do before we're going to leave. The movie The Red Tent is coming on television. Turn the page. Here's the book. Now I want to show you what television does. The entire story of The Red Tent is chapter 34. So if you miss any of it, just read one chapter of Bible. Now, so quickly, I have no time, so let's just do 5 minutes of The Red Tent. Ready? I have never read the book. No male that I know has ever read that book. Like every male in the world that I know, and I can vouch for this, I got 40 pages in it, and I said, oh, and I put it aside and turned the football back on. I've never met, women love this book. They just fell, I've read it 28 times. And no man, every guy picked it up, said, I'll try to read it, it's good. I write 40 pages in, I said to my wife, what? All right. I don't know why. 50 Shades of Grey is also one of these books. All right. Let's go. 50 Shades of Oi. Jacob comes to the town of Shechem. Now, where did Abraham live? Abraham lived in Hebron, in Kiryat Arba, which is Hebron. Where did Isaac live? Beersheba. Okay? Where did Jacob live? Shechem. Where's Shechem today, by the way? Shechem is the city of Nablus. Nablus is northern West Bank. Okay? It's in, not Judea, Samaria. Northern West Bank. Shechem. The town of Nablus is the Arabic word for the word Naples, Neapolis. The Shechem was the biblical city. When the Romans came, they destroyed the city and rebuilt a Roman polis called Neapolis, new city, Neopolis, new city, Neapolis, Naples. In Arabic, P's become B's, Naples becomes Nablus. Okay? Get out of here. Ta-da! Now here's the interesting thing. The interesting thing is that each patriarch is associated with a different city, which leads some scholars to believe that what you have here is not 3 generations, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, but 3 different sectors of Israel, pooling their national narratives, the group that said Abraham is our father, the group that had Isaac as the father, and the group that had Jacob as the father, and they've come together, and the editor makes them into 3 generations. You see how that works? Right? So let's take a look. Ready? He's settled now in Shechem, and so now this is the first time that the family's been back in Canaan. The family's back in Canaan. Okay? Now Dinah, daughter of Leah, and Jerry writes a beautiful chapter on this, so I'll urge you to read The Lost Matriarch, the chapter on this, because he'll give you all the detail. Dinah was the daughter of Leah, whom Jacob had borne, went out to visit the daughters of the land. What do you mean she went out to visit the daughters of the land? The family settles in the new town, and they send her to the public high school. So she tries out for the cheerleading squad. Where are you going, honey? It's Friday night. Dad, it's a football game, right? And I'm cheerleading, you know, go Shechem Lions or whatever, you know, right? Shechem, now, so the town is called Shechem, but the prince of the town is called Shechem, son of Hamor. Hamor is the leader of the town. I doubt that was really his name. Hamor means an ass, a donkey, a jackass. That was his political opponent, unless he was a Democrat, and that's what it meant, right? Right? But you know, they have a donkey for their. All right, Shechem's son of Hamor. I'm trying so hard. The Hivite, chief of the country, saw her, took her, and lay with her by force. It looks that way. At least that's somebody's story, right? If you go to the University of Virginia, what happened? The girl said she was raped. The boys in the fraternity said there was no party that night, and we don't do pledge parties in the fall semester, and we don't have any sexual rights as part of our pledge drive, and the boy that she said she was with doesn't belong to our fraternity. What happened? Yes. Now, so the question is, whose story is this? So you could read the story one way and say, she went out, he took her, he raped her, the bastard, right? Or let's think of a different story. She went out.
He was cute.
Hello? Say that again?
He was cute.
They dated. They fell in love. There's another story. This is Romeo and Juliet. We just got finished with Hamlet. Now we're on Romeo and Juliet. This is the boy you're not allowed to fall in love with. Right? Sorry? Vayanea is somebody said Vayanea. Somebody said she, but is that really what happened? Is this the story of a boy who falls in love with a girl he's not supposed to love? Or is this the story of a boy who does what he's not supposed to do? Is he entitled? And is this the story of a girl who accidentally gets knocked up? I mean, there's all kinds of interesting questions here. Is that what she said to her family? Because she didn't want them getting angry? Right? I mean, you get all kinds of it, you know. And what is she doing frolicking with the boys of the town? Where are the brothers? Don't you take care of your daughters?
How did she get out alone?
Yes, hello? You're going out dressed like that? I said to my daughter 10,000 times. Right? Like that you're going out dressed? Like my God, you know?
Don't say the word.
It's exactly, well, it's here in the Bible. It's not me, right? Being strongly, look at verse 3. It doesn't sound like a rape, because look at the next line. Being strongly drawn to Dinah, daughter of Jacob, and in love with the maiden, he spoke to the maiden tenderly. It doesn't sound as much like a rape as it does as a romance. In the Bible, there are stories of rape. The story of Tamar and Amnon, right? Tamar is the daughter of King David, and Amnon is her half-brother. He falls crazy in love with her. They're together. He rapes her. And the moment he's finished, what happens? He hates her. He throws her out because she's the object of his lust and his power. He doesn't love her. Here, Shechem loves Dinah. Strongly drawn, in love with the maiden, he spoke. So Shechem said to the father, get me this girl as a wife. That doesn't sound like rape. That sounds like romance. I'm telling you, that's why it's a contradictory story, you see? These things are always contradictory. Is it consensual? Is it not consensual? Was there romance? Was it not romance? I'm not kidding when I talked about the Rolling Stone story. I'm sure something happened to that woman. The question is, what happened to her? And everyone's story is going to, and what one person's consent is another person's, force. And in the morning, it's always different than it was the night before. And, Jacob heard what, now listen, Jacob, now, I thought his name was Israel. Abraham was Avram and became Avraham. Did he ever go back to Avram? No. Sarai, Sarah, right? The name gets changed. But here is Jacob, Israel. Jacob heard that he had defiled his daughter Dinah. But since the sons were in the field with the cattle, Jacob kept silent till they came home. What does that sound like? That's the retreating again. That's the hesitation. You touch my daughter, I'll kill you. I don't care who the hell you are. Right? What do you mean he waited? What? Why would he wait? And this, all right, Shechem's father Hamor came out to Jacob to speak to him. Meanwhile, Jacob's sons, having heard the news, came in from the field. The men were distressed and very angry because he committed an outrage by lying in Israel. Now, this is an anachronism. An outrage in Israel. Israel here is the name of the land, you see? Unless it's the town, unless it's the family. He committed an outrage by lying with Jacob's daughter, a thing not done. Now, see, what's going on here is the thing not done means that you're being told the story through the eyes of the brothers. You know how in cinema sometimes you see a scene through the eyes of the character? It's a point of view shot. This is, when we see the brothers, what do the brothers see? What do the brothers see? Our sister went out and she was raped. Okay? What does Shechem and Hamor see? What does Shechem see? Shechem is the name of the boy. I met this girl. She's the love of my life. Where stars are in our way. We spent the night together. It was the most glorious night of my life. I want it to last forever. Some enchanted evening, I have found my stranger. It's exactly right. What does Hamor, the father, see? Wait. I have a son in love. What do I have camped out in front of my front yard? Shechem is a serious town. But Jacob is a serious tribe now. 12 sons, that's 12 tribes. He's got this huge nomadic tribe camped out on my front lawn. They can either be a threat or they are potentially an ally. If I can marry my daughter to my son, to their daughter, I eliminate the threat, I gain an ally, it's a great deal. Hamor sees opportunity. Shechem sees the girl he loves. The brothers see a rapist, a defiling rapist. Jacob sees what? What does Jacob see? What does Jacob see? Gloria, what does Jacob see? Tsuris, problem. I don't need this. I've had enough drama in my life. I just saved my life from my murderous brother. Now I got to get into this. Now I got kids who are crazy. I got wives who are crazy. I got a brother who's crazy. I got parents who are crazy. Now my children are crazy. Right? Jacob takes a drink and goes to bed. He takes 2 Valium, right? So, all right, here's the red tent. Ready? So what happens? Hamor spoke to them saying, my son Shechem longs for your daughter. Please give him to her in marriage. Intermarry with us. Give us your daughters. Take our daughters. You'll dwell among us. The land will be open. Settle, move about, acquire holdings. Let's marry the kids and build a political economic alliance. Hamor is speaking as a statesman. To Jacob. Right? Shechem said to her father, do me this favor. I will pay you whatever you tell me. Ask of me a bride price ever so high as well as gifts. I'll pay whatever you tell me. Give me the maiden for a wife. He's starstruck. He's in love. The father is trying to negotiate a deal. Right? Bride price, by the way, in the ketubah you do this. In the ketubah, every groom pays a bride price to help compensate the father for the investment he did into the daughter. Right? So when your daughter got married, your son-in-law should have paid you a fairly large amount of money to compensate. Yeah, I'll love it. All right, what can I tell you? So what does Shechem say? Shechem says, you name the price, add to it. I'll double it. I'll dump you whatever you want. I'll pay. I just want this girl. Right? Hamor says, we have a deal. This would be great for the community of Shechem. It'd be great for you guys. You'll have a place, and the town will prosper as well. The brothers are still thinking, yeah, we don't need your stinking deals. This land is our land anyway. God gave it to us. Who the hell do you think you are anyway? Hamor, you're a jackass. See, he's a Hamor in their eyes. That's the point, you see? And Shechem is the name of the town. They don't even want to know the name of the boy. He's that boy from Shechem, right? Tex, New Mexico, Old Kentucky, he's that boy from Shechem. Oh, that boy from Shechem, right? Yeah, Ronnie. What does Dina think? Jerry, what's Dina thinking?
Dina thinks a lot of things, because how could she not?
Yeah.
It's just that our Torah doesn't include that.
Right.
The rabbis have to come in and create some of the possible stories.
What is Leah thinking?
Poor Leah gets mentioned, and the rabbis actually blame her. They blame her because like mother, like daughter.
Right.
And she's already acted in the patriarchal view as a little assertive about marital relationships.
Right. She's a little too sexual for these guys. So the rabbis are going to come in and fill all this in. Now, what does Dina think? So you can come up with five. Listen, the problem with making biblical movies is that you take an open text and you then cement one interpretation of the text. Dina, you could have 5 different Dinas, right? You could have the Dina who is madly in love with this boy and wants to marry him. That's the Romeo and Juliet. You could have the Dina who is in fact raped and is broken by this experience and victimized. You have the Dina who would, you have a Dina who doesn't want her brothers making arrangements. She resents the brothers. You can have 5 different Dinas in this story, right? So what happens? Jacob's sons answered Shechem and his father, speaking with guile, because they're still angry about what they did. And he said and by the way, the word Dina comes from the word din, which means judgment. So what you're talking here is about a perversion, a screwing of judgment. You get the point? I mean, there's an element of that. And he said, we can't do this thing giving our sister to a man who's uncircumcised. For that is a disgrace among us. Only on this condition we agree with you that you become like us and every male among you circumcised. Then we'll give daughters to you and take your daughters for ourselves, and we'll dwell among you and become like one kindred. But if you won't listen to us and become circumcised, we'll take our daughter and go. Desert people are circumcised, largely to protect from the blowing sand. City people are not. You want to become like us, you have to wear the mark of the desert people. That's all you want? That's all you want? Our foreskins? We offered you money, land, power. All right, listen. The words pleased Hamor and his son. So they went and lost no time in doing the thing. He wanted Jacob's daughter. He was the most respected in his father's house. Hamor and his son went to the public place, and he said to the townspeople, I have good news and I have bad news. Guess what? We're going to get those guys. Guess what? The people are our friends. Let them settle in the land, move in. The land is large enough. We'll take their daughters. They'll give us our daughters. We'll have all of their property. Get only on this condition. Okay, I got one thing I got to ask all of you guys. One little thing. Little thing. And then this is, of course, before like sharp knives were invented, right? We're talking rocks, And look at the way that, and he said, after he lets them know that, then like a good politician, it's good news, good news, right? After he tells them we have to become circumcised, their cattle and their substance and beasts will be ours. Good news, good news. Every politician does that, right? Right? We'll get only if we agree to their terms. So they went out. That must have been one hell of a town council meeting. Now, I just thought the loyal opposition gets there. Let me get this straight. You want me so that we. So what happened? And they went out of the gate and they heeded them. On the third day they were in pain. Simon and Levi, two of Jacob's sons and brothers of Dinah, took his sword, came out of the city, and slew all the males. They killed everybody. Now, interestingly, Shechem's a serious town. A serious town. If two brothers of two of the 12 could destroy a town, what could all 12 do? You get a sense of how powerful Jacob is now? It's a different sense than we had just a moment ago. Before we had this sense of Jacob being very scared. Now we have a sense of tremendous power. Now, whether what they did was, look at the very end of the story, because we don't have any time at all. We're out of town and the phone's ringing, right? Look at the very end of the story, verse 30. Jacob said to Simon and Levi, "You have brought trouble on me, making me odious," that's smelly, among the inhabitants of the land. My men are few, so that if they unite against me and attack me, I and my house will be destroyed. What does Jacob say? Does he say what you did was wrong? It's immoral. It's wrong to lie. We could have been straight about this. Does he say, I'm ashamed of what you guys are?
You open it up to danger.
It's purely practicality. You've made our lives in this place more difficult. And look how the Torah writes the story. The last line belongs not to Jacob, the patriarch, but to the two boys. And they say, should our sister be treated like a whore? And the word is zonah, which is a very powerful word in the Bible, which means they get the last line. And what's their last line? You taught us to stick together. And you just spent all these chapters reconciling with your brother, and you don't expect us to go and avenge our sister? Family solidarity, Dad, is more important than your political position in this land. Right? We're doing what you taught us to do. And in a certain sense, we're doing more. They have assimilated the Esav, right? And remember what the blessing was? What was the blessing? The hands are the hands of Esau, the voice is the voice of Jacob. What did Simon and Levi do? They used the voice of Jacob to disarm their enemy, and the hands of Jacob to destroy them. And the question has Esau to destroy them. And the question is that the kind of power this people needs to have? And if you have that kind of power, what are you going to be doing with it? What are the moral uses of that power? And that's going to be a story that's going to track us for the rest. Next week, we're going to turn the page and begin the next drama, which is what happens to these brothers as they become the stars of the Torah story. Thanks very much. Have a good Shabbos.